RamView is back, and the Rams open camp mañana. This is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage.
Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the July 24th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Kistler Law is there for you. Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. All right, we're back. It is Del Scorcho weather here. Anytime you're in the 90s, it's Del Scorcho. Although I've been in Phoenix when it's 122 degrees and been outside in 122 degree weather. It's not pleasant, but I can tell you that when Phoenix is in the 90s in August, it's springtime. Okay, I don't know why people are saying it's death now. Phoenix 90s in the spring in August. That's a gift. Anyway, here we are. Getting back to do RamView after I've been gone for a week. Picked up some new fans that are watching us. I am Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years. I still am, kind of. Now I do RamView, and I write books. Joe Terosian on Amazon.com. You can check them out there. A couple of pretty good high school football novels, according to what the critics say. So I did okay. What are my thoughts right now? Well, people were asking what my thoughts were. Well, I'm rooting against the women's soccer team. Yeah, I always do. I always will. Communist kickball must be stopped. And that's just how I feel. So, yeah, I never thought there'd be a day I rooted for Vietnam. But, yeah, I was rooting for Vietnam. I just don't like soccer. I think it's okay. Let it be a niche sport. But I'm not even going to break it into the top four. Football, baseball, basketball, we get it. And then I'm putting hockey there. I ain't dancing with soccer. Homie, don't play that, okay? Great game, fun game to play, average one to watch. I'll watch World Cup every 4 years and check out some Messi. So there we go. Oh, last thought on the women's soccer team. Is it just me, or does it seem like everything is surrounding Alex Morgan this time around? And Megan Rapinoe seems to have vanished, or they've kind of put her in the background. I'm not seeing her face. I'm not seeing her in the plugs and the advertisement. Just a lot of Alex Morgan. And I'm wondering if that was a conscious decision by Fox to say, you know what, we don't want to drive ratings down. We want to drive ratings up. So let's not use Morgan Rapinoe. Anyway, I just share that because it's what I noticed. Desperate dead period material. I want to thank Brian Jono on Twitter for thinking what I was thinking. The outrage over Matthew Stafford not being listed as a top 20 quarterback on Madden 24. Desperate dead period material. No one cares. Anyone that's a true fan doesn't care. We know what Stafford's capable of, and we've gone through the list of quarterbacks that we would trade Stafford for. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence. Everyone else, I'm going to hold on to the dude from Detroit for a little bit longer. So I'm not too worked up about that. Not too worked up about the Rams uniforms. I think it's what you talk about up until camp starts. But right now, I just don't care. For the most part, they're going to butcher it, and it's going to be ugly. And there's going to be some marketing person who thinks they know marketing, and they probably do know marketing, but they just don't know Ram fans. The few of us that there are out there that are in this audience, most Ram fans, yeah, we have what we like, but I'm not getting worked up about it. I'm sure they'll throw out something really hideous and they'll get some sales, and that's what it's all about, right? It's just how can we maximize our apparel sales, and it's so easy. Just go back to the 70s and we're okay, but I don't care. Also, desperate dead period material. I haven't clicked, pardon me, I haven't clicked on not one of the Rams mock drafts for 2024. I mean, please, I gotta I got a trivia question today that took a little work on my part. I had to work on it to come up with a trivia question that's worthy of people clicking on for, not like, oh, how many Super Bowls have the Rams won? Or how many Super Bowls have the Rams been in? I worked hard for that. And if you work hard, you can find stuff that doesn't have to look like desperate dead period material, which is what a Rams mock draft for 2024 looks like. All right. Before we get to the round the NBA, desperate dead period material number 4. Jaguars assistant strength and conditioning coach Kevin Maxson comes out as publicly gay. Okay. I saw the announcement go across the scroll and headlines. First NFL coach to ever come out as openly gay. And it's like, he's an assistant strength and conditioning coach. He's probably got less influence on a team than Katie Sowers has in San Francisco, okay? He's the strength and conditioning coach. Oh, did I say that? Strength and conditioning coach guy comes out as gay, and I'm supposed to stop the presses, right? Strength and conditioning coach comes out as gay. Phoenix, it's 90 degrees weather. Man, this is desperate dead period nirvana for some folks. I don't care. I just don't care. All right, around the NFL, the big running back Zoom meeting happened where they all found out they can't do anything about it. And really the problem lies with their players union, more so than with the owners or anybody else. They signed this current agreement, and maybe running backs shouldn't be listed as franchise tag players. I get that. I totally see that. But it's not going to change anything right now. There's nothing they can do. And we can look at the case of Saquon Barkley. And I'll say this about these running backs. It's a shame. It really is. But science and analytics have pretty much put the kibosh on the big dough making running back. So let's look at Saquon Barkley. He's been in the NFL for 5 seasons, 2 great first seasons. Then one season he blew out his knee. The other season was recovery. And he had a really good season last year, went for 1,000 yards. So he's 26 this year, 5 seasons, 3,000-yard seasons. That's 5 seasons in the NFL for a running back, okay? And now he doesn't want to sign the franchise tag. He's thinking about holding out, which means he won't play the year he's 26. He'll play when he's 27. And does the market figure to improve? Does it figure like, oh, there's going to be such a huge thing in running backs? I loved it how they were saying, well, maybe I make reference to the KBM, Kiss Butt Media. They were saying that if all the running backs held out, they're just going to go to the USFL, the CFL, CIF, someplace, and they're just going to find them, or they're going to take some wide receiver who's 7th on the depth chart and says, hey, you want to be our version of Montgomery was with Green Bay a few years ago. His name just slipped me. Remember Montgomery? And so it's not going to change. And I'll put it this way. In 1990, the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley's team, drafted Rodney Hampton out of Georgia, 28th overall. And he played on that Super Bowl team, although that was Otis Anderson's team. Hampton ended up playing 8 seasons in the NFL, all with the Giants. He had 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, and he was done at 28. And it's like, oh, man, what are they going to do? 1 year later, they plugged in Gary Brown, a journeyman who played for the Oilers before. He was drafted by the Oilers in the second round, I think, or 8th round, actually. Gary Brown was 8th round out of Penn State by the Oilers. And Gary Brown ran for 1,000 yards in 1999 at the age of 29, okay? In 2000, very next year for the Giants, Tiki Barber ran for 1,000. And 6 out of the next 7 seasons, Tiki Barber ran for 1,000 yards. The year after Tiki Barber retired, the Giants won the Super Bowl with Brandon Jacobs, who ran for 1,000 yards. And by the way, Hampton replaced O.J. Anderson, who was a 1,000-yard back, and Anderson replaced Joe Morris back in the late 80s, who was also a 1,000-yard back for the Giants. Do you have an idea what the Giants might be thinking here? It's like, yeah, he is a great player. He's a great player. But you know what? There's a lot of guys that play running back. There's a lot of ways to replace the running backs. And you look at the Giants, same ownership, Mara family. They do things a certain way. I bet they're looking back. Well, we replaced Joe Morris with Otis Anderson with Rodney Hampton with Gary Brown with Tiki Barber with Brandon Jacobs, right? And along the way, we won a couple of Super Bowls. What's wrong with that? Why do we need to put all this money into a running back? I think the Maras have a mindset here. Let's look at the Denver Broncos in the height of the Shanahan era. Between 1995 and 1998, Terrell Davis started his career at Long Beach State under George Allen, went to Georgia, was a special teams player. He got locked in with that running game of Mike Shanahan's. And from 95 to 98, he ran for 1,000 yards. That's 4 consecutive seasons. In fact, in 1998, he ran for 2,008 yards. The next year, he blew out his knee trying to make a tackle after an interception. In 1999, Olandis Gary stepped in. He was a 4th rounder drafted by the Denver Broncos, and he ran for 1,000 yards in 1999. He was out of the league by 2003. In 2000, Mike Anderson ran for 1,400 yards. In 2002, 2003, Clinton Portis ran for 1,000 yards, and he was traded for Champ Bailey. 2004, Reuben Drones, a 3rd rounder out of Detroit, ran for 1,000 yards. Mike Anderson was back at it again in 2005. He was 32 years old, a 6th rounder, and he ran for 1,000 yards. In 2006, Tatum Bell was a 2nd rounder, and he ran for 1,000 yards. So I hope I didn't say Anderson ran for 2,000 yards in 2005. He ran for 1,000 yards. But are you seeing this here? Terrell Davis, a Hall of Fame running back, went down, and he was immediately replaced by 1,000-yard rushers Olandis Gary, Mike Anderson, Clinton Portis, Reuben Drones, and Mike Anderson again, and Tatum Bell. And just to bring some real close to home stuff here. Now, this speaks of the Rams' massive consistency on the offensive line from 1965 through 1990. In the 60s, Dick Scooter Bass ran for 1,000 yards twice, okay? But coming out of that period, starting in 1971, Willie Ellison ran for 1,000 yards. In 1973 and 74, and in 1976 and 77, Lawrence McCutcheon ran for 1,000 yards. In 1975, he banged up his knee towards the end of the season. He finished with 911 yards. He easily could have 1,000 yards that year. In 1979, Wendell Tyler ran for 1,000 yards. In 1980, he was hurt, but came back in 81, and Wendell Tyler ran for 1,000 yards again. From 1983 through 1986, Eric Dickerson ran for 1,000 yards. In 1987, Charles White ran for 1,000 yards. In 88 and 89, Greg Bell had 1,000-yard seasons. And if you want to stretch it out to 1992, because Jackie Slater and Tom Newberry were still there, Cleveland Gary ran for 1,000 yards. And then that leads up to Jerome Bettis in 93 and 94. But again, those were different offensive lines. But those Rams offensive lines were anchored by Shabelli, Einman, Rick Saw, Charlie Cowan, Jackie Slater, Dennis Hara, John Williams, Tom Mack, Doug France, Irv Pankey, Bill Bain, Tom Newberry, Kent Hill, and it was the consistency there. But look at all those different runners. They didn't go through long gaps trying to find a 1,000-yard runner. They're making it sound like there needs to be a federal intervention for running backs in this running back crisis. Like we got to have meetings in front of Congress to talk about what's going on with running backs. And all I could really just say is it's the nature of the beast. Working against running backs is science and analytics. There are only so many hits you can take as a running back. It's not about blocking. It's about hits. Those legs take hits. And once those legs are gone, of course, it's over. And it's just the way it is. Teams are drifting away from that. Most offenses are pass heavy, and they spread out the run. And everyone knows this because they don't want to spend the money for the running backs because they burn out so quick. Also working against the running backs is the analytics of it all. The nature of the game, the loosening of all the rules on the defense, or the tightening of the rules on the defense and loosening of things for the offense. It's a pass-happy league. And so it works against these running backs when it was, 3 yards and a cloud of dust, or 3 yards and eat the turf. It's just what it is now. So if you're a running back coming up, be a running back, but learn how to run routes. Don't let them just say, well, we're going to throw you the ball. Go run with the wide receivers and learn how to run routes. Learn how to run split out wide. Learn how to run from the slot. Learn to block. Learn to block in the backfield. Learn to block at the H-back, U-back, tight end spot. Make yourself versatile. Marshall Faulk played a long time in the NFL. And he played a long time even after maybe his brilliant speed was gone, but his game was so rounded. He was a blocker. He was a runner. As a receiver, Marshall Faulk caught 767 catches. He caught 767 passes. He was a rounded guy. Also, where the nature of the game is going now is you think of Deebo Samuel and some of these other guys. There was also a guy back in the 50s and 60s that played 12 years. His name was Lenny Moore. Funny, he's also from Penn State. And if you look at him on Pro Football Reference, I happened to see his highlights when I was young. Greatest Sports Legends. He was a halfback flanker. He averaged for 12 years in the league. He averaged 100 carries a season. 100 carries. So it means he wasn't the feature back, but he was also he was getting the ball close to 10 times a game, and he averaged 30 catches a season at flanker, and so they used him in creative ways. Now, for the first half of his career, the NFL was only playing 12-game seasons, so his stats don't look inflated, but he's in the Hall of Fame, and he was key to several Colts titles. And so the nature of the running back, it's gone, folks, and you can whine about it, you can complain about it, or you can make yourself more versatile, make yourself more valuable to the team. On a lesser scale, and he's not Marshall Faulk, but it was the Patriots' Kevin Faulk. If you remember, Kevin Faulk had a long career in the NFL. Now, he didn't make big money, but that guy did everything. He blocked, he ran, he caught passes. He had a really nice double-digit career. I think he played 11 seasons, and he was on most of those early Super Bowl championship teams. But that's just the nature of the beast, and that's what's going on. Real quick here, speaking of running backs, Melvin Gordon signed with the Ravens, so I don't think he's going to hold out. He wanted a job. The Ravens put J.K. Dobbins on the PUP list. The PUP list is the physically unable to perform list. They can bring you back anytime. However, you keep counting against the roster, but the roster can stay at 90 all the way up to the final cut. So it's not that big of a deal anymore. I thought it was funny that Bengals tackle Lyle Collins was on the PUP list. Panthers guard, former Ram Austin Corbett's on the PUP list. Bears put Chase Claypool on the PUP list. And, Giants signed Cole Beasley. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that dude was toast. We'll see how long he lasts. It'll be interesting to see. In the brutal things aren't fair in this world, Nyheim Hines, the running back kick returner for the Bills, who they acquired midseason last year for Zach Moss, had that game where he returned 2 kickoffs for a touchdown. He's lost for the year in a jet ski accident. I'm going to use a profane word here. That just sucks. That's just terrible. And he wasn't a big money guy anyway. In fact, I think he took less to stay with the Giants. I'd have to double check that. While I was away, DeAndre Hopkins signed with the Tennessee Titans, 2 years, 26. He's basically getting 12 rocks this year with an incentive to go up to 15. That's a nice deal for the Titans. I think if I'm Hopkins, I'd taken less and I'd gone to a team where I could have played for a ring. The Titans aren't playing for a ring. Let's see. Chiefs, Kadarius Toney aggravates a knee. They thought it was serious. It doesn't look as serious. And the Chiefs, Chris Jones, the second best defensive lineman in the NFL, has not reported to camp. He wants one of those contracts that Aaron Donald has. And I like him, but I'm not going to give him Aaron Donald money. And you know what? The Chiefs aren't either. I don't think they're going to give him Aaron Donald money. Not a guy that's in his 9th year. And they've gotten the best out of him, I think. He's not Aaron Donald. He's really good, but he's not Aaron Donald. In some real Ram news that happened actually the day I did our last broadcast, Kikua Kalinka, the Canadian guy, the tight end, I played for the Colts a little bit. It was up at the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He's a tight end, signed with the Rams, special teamer. I don't see him making the active 53. So there we go. No special thoughts or questions today. Everyone was just happy I was gone. So
it was a stone Stone Group,
Well,
my man.
it may have been a Stone Group, but I was thinking about you and such. So real quick here, the Kistler Law Rams trivia question of the day. Okay, this is an interesting one. I worked hard on this one. Which of the following Rams running backs ran for the most yards in their Rams career? What was their best season with the Rams? How many yards did they run for? Okay, which of the following Rams running backs ran for the most yards in their Ram best season, their best season with the Rams? But none of them ran for 1,000 yards. There's the tip. None of them ran for 1,000 yards. But what was their best season for the Rams? So was it A, Elvis Peacock, B, Zach Stacy, C, Ollie Matson, D, Cullen Bryant, E, Les Josephson? Who had the highest number of yards of these players that didn't run for 1,000 yards in their Ram career? A, Elvis Peacock, B, Zach Stacy, C, Ollie Matson, D, Cullen Bryant, E, Lester Josephson. All right. Commercial, I already did it at the top. I'm Joe Tarosian, and I do RamView. I was a sports writer for 21 years, various newspapers, magazines. One of the founding members at Mid-Valley Sports. Those guys are still working over there, Tim and Dwayne. They are in the room with the Chargers. I do RamView. So we're all doing well. You can find my books on Amazon. I do this as a day job because, well, I do this part of my day job because one of my main job is I pastor a small church in Burbank Faith. You can find us here online, a channel right here on YouTube, Burbank Faith Virtual, as well as burbankfaithvirtual.com, Burbank Faith Virtual on FB and various places. Okay, commercial in. On this day, July 24th, 1972, Roman Gabriel returns to the Rams camp after a collapsed lung the week before. Now, 1972 would prove to be Roman Gabriel's last year with the Rams, his most difficult year with the Rams. Think about as you're getting ready for the 1972 season, your quarterback in July goes out with a collapsed lung. I don't know the details of that collapsed lung because everything was so different in those days. Maybe they were actually hitting each other in those days, but the dude had a collapsed lung, came back to camp a week later on this date in 1972. 50 years ago today, Lance Rensel was suspended by the NFL after he was busted in January for marijuana possession. Now, I don't do doobies. I don't do pot. I don't smoke it. Never have, never will. I'm not into that stuff. I'd recommend you not to be into it. I'm not against it for medical reasons. But with all that said, to think about a player being suspended for an entire season, and when you think about Lance Rensel's resume, to think that he got suspended for a whole year for this is really interesting. Also, same day, 1973, the Rams trade 7th-round draft pick guard Bill Dulac to the New England Patriots for Herb Adderley, future Hall of Famer Herb Adderley. 9 seasons with the Packers, all those titles, 2 Super Bowls there. He had 3 seasons with the Cowboys and won a Super Bowl there. He's benched, I think it was late in 72, and he wasn't going to start, and the Rams made a deal for him. Now, that was interesting because he was 12 years into his career. He was near the end of his career. He experienced everything there was to experience. I think he had a 70-yard pick six in Super Bowl II, and it really got me thinking about how desperate the Rams organization was in early 1973 to get ready for that season. Chuck Knox had just taken over. Don Klosterman was just getting things going. And when the Rams ended the 1972 seasons, the Rams safeties were Jim Nettles and Dave Elmendorf at strong safety. The corners were Al Clark and Gene Howard. And on January 31st of 73, the Rams traded for Colts legendary safety Jerry Logan. But Logan decided he didn't want to play, so he retired. The Rams on August 20th signed Steve Priest. He was a free agent, had been playing for the Saints, and he ended up being the starting safety for the Rams in 73 and 74. Gene Howard was traded to the Detroit Lions on September 4th. Jim Nettles was cut by the Rams on September 5th. And it was interesting, the Rams acquired Charlie Stukes from the Vikings for a 5th rounder on August 28th. And Herb Adderley was waived by the Rams on August 7th. It was a very short 2 weeks for Herb Adderley. But it was interesting that the Rams acquired Steve Priest on August 20th, and then he's the starting safety in Kansas City next to Dave Elmendorf. And then the Rams acquired Charlie Stukes very much right there in the last week of August, and he's the starting corner opposite rookie Eddie McMillan. And that seems like, wow, you're putting in pieces of your team, 3 pieces, because McMillan was the draft pick. The only one that remained was Dave Elmendorf. They put all those pieces together that year, that summer in 1973, to go along with a good linebacking core and a good defensive front. And the Rams went 12-2. The Rams went 12-2 with a lineup that was pretty much put together the last month of the summer. And so I thought that bared mentioning. Maybe that's a little too Nerdsville for you, but I thought it was interesting. On this date in 1975, the Rams signed Norris Weiss. Norris Weiss had been a 4th-round draft pick of the Rams in 74 out of Ole Miss, but he signed with the World Football League. Had a nice little run there in the World Football League. World Football League collapsed. He comes and joins the Rams on this date in 1975. He's one of the last cuts in September 10th of 1975. Goes to the Broncos, has about 4 years with the Broncos. He plays in the Super Bowl, and he accounts himself pretty well. He wasn't bad as a starter, kind of filled in. He was the mobile guy to counter the immobile Craig Morton. Unfortunately, Norris Weiss died at the age of 44 of bone cancer, but the Rams signed him on this day in 1975. And a dark day in Ram history, on this date in 1978, the Rams acquired punt returner safety Eddie Brown from the Washington Redskins, and a 1981 7th-round pick that turned into Ron Battle, tight end. Talk about him some other time. The Rams sent Donnie Hickman, Jeff Evans, Jeff Williams. Donnie Hickman was a USC offensive lineman. And a 3rd-round pick in 79. And in 1980, a 2nd and a 3rd to the Redskins for Eddie Brown, which was really interesting because you want to know who was making that deal. I know I got a nephew of Don Klosterman who actually watches this show, and I'd like to know, because that doesn't sound like a Don Klosterman deal. That sounds like George Allen was having a little too much influence with Carol Rosenblum. I don't think Don Klosterman would trade a number 2 and 2 number 3s for Eddie Brown. Yeah, doesn't make sense. And of course, Brown pays the Rams back in full by blowing the coverage in Super Bowl 4 that hangs Rod Perry, Super Bowl 14, that hangs Rod Perry out to dry. And John Stallworth catches the go-ahead touchdown pass, which basically is the winning touchdown catch of Super Bowl 14, ending the dream, and making him the most disliked player, as far as I'm concerned, in Ram history. Anyway, throw it out there. On this date in 1984, the Rams traded Robert the Great Alexander to the Bolts for an undisclosed draft pick that wasn't used. Alexander had been drafted by the Rams in the 10th round of 1981. He actually looked really good. He was one of those Nelson Spruce guys, had some really good summer camps with the Rams. But after the Rams drafted Eric Dickerson, he was done. And he didn't last very long in San Diego. He was cut within a couple weeks. Now, since we're not going to be here tomorrow, I did want to slip in these 2 things, these couple thoughts here. In regards to July 25th, 1975, the Rams released David Ray. They had acquired Tom Dempsey, and the David Ray time was done. He kicked really well for the Rams, but he had a back injury at the end of 74, and it was the end of the line for David Ray. On this date in 1979, Dave Elmendorf signed a 1-year contract extension. It proved to be his last contract with the Rams because that Super Bowl 14, where Eddie Brown blew the coverage, that was Dave Elmendorf's last game. And on July 25th, 1994, Crespi High School standout, Cal standout, ran for 1,000 yards 3 times. Russell White, who looked like a can't-miss prospect in the NFL. The Rams had drafted him 3rd round, 73rd overall in 1993. He was the nephew of Charles White, and I think he's related to Kermit Alexander as well. He was released by the Rams on July 25th, 1994, and he turned out to be a pretty good high school football coach. I think he heads up CIF up north somewhere, so he turned out to have a nice career, just not in the NFL. All right, so we got most of that stuff in. It is blistering right now in the Ram Cave. I could feel the perspiration. It must be because my on-air sign is back up. All right, we got some work done while I was gone. All right, so the Rams, I've been covering the Rams season schedule. looking at the defenses that there's going to be seen each week. We're not talking about offenses. We're just talking about the defenses they're going to be facing. When we complete the 17-game schedule, we'll come back around and look at the defense, the offenses the Rams are facing. So the way it stands right now, with wins over Seattle, Arizona, Cleveland, the Rams improved to 6-6, but I gave them a loss to the Ravens this past week in week 14, and they dropped to 6-7. The Rams will have lost to the Ravens, the Seahawks, Frisco, Pitt, Philly, Dallas, and Cincy. So at this point, I see the Rams as 6-7 heading into week 15. And week 15, they'll be playing the Taxkins at home on December 17th, 2023. I don't think there's going to be a name change just yet, so we're still going to call them the Taxkins. The new owner really should go see some people who actually are Native American and not white liberals, and who live in Washington, and decide what maybe name is appropriate for them, because that name change was driven not so much by Native Americans. I could say so because I guess I am one, right? 2.7%. But that was a political thing by again, people who really shouldn't have any say. The Taxkins, so I'm going to call them because that's what Washington is. They are hold a 24-12 edge over the Rams all time. The teams are 2-2 in playoff history. I looked at this thing back when the schedule came out and projected it as a Rams win. I still kind of do. The Taskins had a good offseason. They got a new owner. They acquired Andrew Wiley, the right tackle from the Chiefs. Cody Barton from the Seahawks is an off-ball linebacker. They re-signed Daron Payne, and they took in Jacoby Brissett as fire insurance in case Sam Howell whiffs that quarterback. Taylor Henneke went away. He signed, I think, in Atlanta. In the draft was keyed by Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback, 6th overall, and Jartavius Martin, safety out of Illinois. That whole Illinois secondary last year was excellent. Looking at the Taxkins across the front line, they are excellent. They are solid. Even if Chase Young isn't what he's supposed to be, he's still very good. He might be traded. But you go Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and Montez Sweat on the edge. That's a heck of a front four or front five, depending on how you want to label that. They are amazing. And so they're good. I don't know if they're deadly to the Rams, but they're very good. And then the off-ball linebackers was Jamin Davis. He improved a lot last year in his second year. And, of course, Cody Barton is a solid player, not great. Adding Emmanuel Forbes to Kendall Fuller at the corners is another solid move by the Redskins. I'm sorry, the Taxkins. And it's strong safety. Cameron Curl is excellent. And Derek Forrest, however, at free safety is just okay. And that means Jartavius Martin could play safety or corner. He's very flexible. And so when you look at this defense that Washington has, it's a good defense. It's not an unbeatable one, but it's very good. And if their offense was any better, they could probably compete with just about anybody in their division, except for maybe the Eagles. They could be better than Giants. They should be better than the Cowboys. But their offense, we don't know what their offense is going to look like, and the prospects aren't too good. This could be Ron Rivera's farewell song. And I think of them coming to SoFi in mid-December. I see the Rams pulling this one off, taking this one at home. Not a blowout, but taking this one at home, 21-13, somewhere along those lines. The Rams will improve to 7-7. So that's pretty optimistic, huh? 14 games into a 17-game season. It is possible to see the Rams at 7-7, and then we will look in the next few weeks at the rest of their schedule. Ahead of them right now, the Saints come to SoFi. The Rams go to New York, and the Rams go to Frisco to close, and that's where it gets tricky. I think they can get in the hunt. I think they should beat the Saints and get that 8th win. But winning on the road in New York on New Year's Eve, and then, of course, just winning against the 49ers anytime can be tricky for the Rams. I think, again, we projected high end for this team is 10 wins, possible 9. Low end of the spectrum is 7 wins, and I think that's where they're at right now. Okay, so we've boiled enough. And I think we're about ready to call it, but we do have to give the answer to the question, the Kistler Law trivia question of the day. And let's get to that right now. Running backs who did not run for 1,000 yards, but had their career best season for the Rams. Which one are they? Okay. A, Elvis Peacock. B, Zach Stacy. C, Ollie Matson. D, Colin Bryant. E, Lester Josephson. Which one of these backs who didn't run for 1,000 yards ran for the most yards without getting to 1,000 in their Ram career? A, Elvis Peacock. B, Zach Stacy. C, Ollie Matson. D, Colin Bryant. Or E, Lester Josephson. So I'll pause. I'll take a drink. Well, the answer is not Elvis Peacock, who ran for 777 yards in 1980. And it's not Lester Josephson, who had a Pro Bowl year in 1967 when he ran for 800 yards. And it's not Colin Bryant, who ran for 807 yards in 1980. And it's not Ollie Matson, who ran for 863 yards in 1959. The answer is B. Zach Stacy ran for 973 yards in 2013. Remember, he was like this guy that came out of nowhere, got replaced a little bit by Trey Mason the following seasons, and then Todd Gurley showed up in 2015, and Zach Stacy was gone, and now he's in all kinds of domestic disputes. But Zach Stacy had the highest number of yards for any Ram running back, not getting 1,000 yards in his best Ram season, and that was, of course, Zach Stacy. Okay, cool. So now we got that taken care of.
Stone Group, my man.
And we're ready to let you guys go. Please, thank you so much for clicking on. Thank you, everybody, for watching while I was gone. And we will be back on Tuesday, on Monday, Wednesday. God bless. Take care. Push the wrong button.